Hello, everybody, and welcome back for a new book reading. This time, I'm going to jump into a new book reading of Stephen King called A Winter's Tale, The Breeding Method. I'm going to start with the introduction. Very short introduction. Here we go. We have heard many tales here, Mr. Adley, but on the Thursday before Christmas, it is always one of the mystery or strange happenings. It has been like that for as long as I can remember. Imagine, if you like, a club for gentlemen. There are no women there. All the members are men. Some are rich, but they are all successful and professional. In the club, there are many rooms. Some have comfortable leather armchairs. In these, the members sit back and read newspapers, books too, because the club has its own library. It also has a bar, and some members sit there, but waiters bring drinks to others in their armchairs. The gentlemen's club in this book is a little different. Here, the main entertainment is stories. As the evening grows late, one or more of the men tell a story. Often it is mysterious, sometimes quite horrible. In the Western world today, we don't listen to many stories. We may hear a friend talk about something that happened or tell a joke, but for entertainment, most people prefer television, the cinema, and computers. But the events in this book happened in the 1960s and 1970s. When home entertainment was more limited. Many men quite happily went out to meet friends and hear stories. This is where we find David Adley. He is waiting outside his house for a taxi. It's a cold winter's night in New York just before Christmas. The clubhouse in this story is a place full of mysteries that neither we nor David fully understand. Nobody knows who the house belongs to. Nobody knows how many rooms there are, or understand the strange noises that they sometimes hear. And there is Stevens, who opens the door and serves the drinks. Stevens has been there for a long time, but he never gets any older. He is polite, but his eyes are cold. Probably he knows the answers to all the questions that David wants to ask. But David is afraid to ask them. Perhaps the answer is something he would prefer not to know. When an old member of the club starts to tell a story on the last Thursday before Christmas, we know that the feeling of mystery will become something much more horrible. This night, before Christmas, it's always a special night at the club. On this night, someone always tells a special, horrible story. The kind of story that keeps you awake at night afterwards. This year, old Dr. McCarran tells about something that happened to him many years before in the 1930s. He was a young doctor then. In this story, a young woman comes to see him. She gives a false name at first because she is pregnant but unmarried. At that time, life was very difficult for a woman who was unmarried and expecting a baby. Her real name, he learns later, is Sandra Sandfield. Unlike many girls in her situation in those days, she wants to keep her baby. She needs a doctor, and she chose well, because Dr. McCarran is an understanding young man with new ideas. Dr. McCarran has written a book about having babies, and he believes in a very new way of controlling the pain of childbirth. Today, this way is well known. It is called the Lamaze method. Lamaze method, after the French doctor Fernand Lamaze. But at the time of his story, it was very new. Dr. McCarran teaches women to control the pain of childbirth by a special way of breathing. He calls this the breathing method. Since the 1930s, this method has helped millions of women to give birth with less pain, but in this story it has an unexpected and horrible result. To find out more, read the book, But Not Alone at Night. That was my introduction of A Winter's Tale, The Breeding Myth. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one.